Hey guys, Granblue here with a Nightsnow deck profile. Now with Fighters Collection 2014 coming out and myself being a Granblue enthusiast, there's no way this deck profile wasn't being made. Anyway, if you're not aware of his skill already, it's Limit Break 4, Counter Blast 1, and basically you swap any of your rear guards with one in the drop zone, and it comes back with 5k. It's quite abusable. It's very abusable when you really think about it. You can even choose the same unit, so for example your draw engine, card like Banshee. You can choose that, bring that back again, and get a third draw if you just use the Break Ride. And of course, any unit you bring back isn't affected by other effects such as the Break Ride, so they do survive until the end of the turn. So you can... I suppose it's more than a break even if you consider the draws. It's definitely plussing. It's absolutely a great unit. Its other skill is from the drop zone. You can Counter Blast 2, Soul Blast 2, and you can ride it providing you have a grade 3 there, which is what this deck intends to abuse. So I played 2 copies of this. It might seem like 2 copies isn't very much, but there's a few ways to search it out. Well, there's one main way to search it out, and it doesn't necessarily need to be in the hand for us to use it anyway, which is great. If you can ride it, that's also good too. But this is mainly what you're going to want to be riding early. The Break Ride, 4 of it, Nightmist, grade 3. Definitely one of the best units Granblue has ever received. On the Break Ride, you get to revive 2 units, they get 5k, but die at the end of the turn. So you've got the choice to put pressure out. You can choose to swap them to keep those units until, well, past the end of your turn. Or, yeah, that's mainly the options, yeah. You can either just keep the field there, get a few draws off, or you can just go for power and really rush your opponent. But also with this deck, you've got the potential to be sitting on 1 Nightmist, Break Ride another, call back 2 units, they get 5k. Then from the drop zone, ride that, so you Break Ride twice in the same turn. You've revived 4 units, they all get 5k, your Vanguard's got 10k. Then if you use his skill, revive another unit, well, assuming you've got one on the field already. And then you've got 5 units on your field that have all gained 5k, and your Vanguard's gained 10k. That's quite a lot of pressure if you really want to push for game that turn. And I imagine if you're using Banshees you'll get quite a lot of draw off that as well. That's fun times. Last grade 3, bit of a tech choice. Kakai's Reverse. Now, Nightsnow has 2 different Counter Blast costs, and usually I'll use at least a few of those each game. Might use the drop zone one if it's set up, which it usually is. So Kakai's Reverse in the early game can set up the drop zone for you, or in the late game. Well, it's going to be mid-game if you've got Limit Break 4 anyway. But in the late game, if you've got no Counter Blast left, it just means that you can keep reviving units and keep going from there. So it's great for that. But usually I've used him for a rear guard. I don't really need to use the backup Vanguard, but he's nice to have there, because otherwise it might seem a bit inconsistent 6 grade 3s. Now for the grade 2s. Play 4 Ribbon Shade. Basically a staple in any Granblue deck. When on attack, it mills 2 and gains 2, so it swings for 11. You can snipe some early rear guard to get a bit of pressure on there. Plus obviously you've got the potential to set up your drop zone, so you want as many of these as you can early on. You don't want to excessively use it of course, because in the late game, even if you have to make good columns, you can usually do that by other means. So you don't have to use the skill to get better columns, especially to hit cross rides, because there are other ways to do it. But yeah, fantastic for the early game. I'm playing free Commodore Blue Blood. It's a 10k, and I know there's going to be a lot of other people who are going to choose Corrupt Dragon, Corrode Dragon. Let's see if I can find it. This guy right here. Now, as opposed to the 10k, when this unit's revived it gets 3k. Now that might seem great. With Nightsnow as well, on his own this unit is 17k. And with this deck, I've never found a problem with setting up the field. So usually, Commodore Blue Blood being 15, as opposed to this being 17, providing you've always got a booster behind it, this will always be better, because it's got 10k base defensive-wise. And usually that's good for the early game as well, because obviously if you ride it, those 9ks aren't going to hit you very easily, at least not without a trigger. Finally, of course, free 3-star Chef Pietro, not because it's a 3-star, but mainly because you're going to be spending quite a bit Counter Blast, and having the unflip means that you can use an extra skill. So every unflip off Pietro means an extra revival off of Nightsnow. And yeah, So you've got the potential to use this to keep pressuring with it, and then have Nightsnow bring it back as a 21k column next turn. So that could be quite nice. Also, any pressure Granblue can get is great, because it's really one of those decks where you want to pressure during the mid-game, and if you can end the game there, that's fantastic. Usually the amount of draw power you can get can tank you into the late game, but pressure is just great, even still. A few more honourable mentions for Grade 2. Deadly Spirit. I really wanted to find space for this guy, because there's a few things you can play around with. Mainly the Grade 3s. So let's say I'm sitting on this. I've probably got a few soul underneath it, and then I ride a Nightmist on top. Now this is in the drop zone. I can Soul Blast this Grade 3 and put it in the drop zone, just to revive this unit. And now he's sitting there, and I can revive him again and break ride in the same turn. So that gives you the potential to do that, but you can also do that just by playing a second copy of this and ensuring it's set up in the drop zone. If you find that to be a bit inconsistent, play one more copy of this, basically. But that's kind of the trade-off I've had to make for the Pietros, just to drop this. But if you're finding it a bit consistent, then play around with it. It's one of those decks anyway, where you just need to play around with your ratios and find out what works for you. Lastly, Skeleton Swordsman. Now, the extra 10k intercept sounds great, especially when you can revive it constantly. The main problem with this deck is there are other pressure units you want to be using, and whilst I do play Romario, a few of them, which means you can set up semi-decent columns, the setup's not always going to be there. I may test this out in future, but for now I feel like there are better units you can use. You've got a great draw engine anyway just for getting cards and tanking like that, so having the possibility of an 8k ride just for the extra 5k guard that you can get every so often isn't fantastic. Though it's not necessarily a bad card to use, so definitely consider that one actually. So for Grade 1s. Banshee's the draw engine. Now, I'd imagine most people would think you'd want to play 4 of them, just so you've got the better odds of randomly milling it, but 3's consistent enough. You only really need 1 or 2 in the drop zone. We have to set the white balance there. You only need like 1 or 2 in the drop zone before you break ride, and you can sort of keep abusing the effects from there. And obviously you've got Chappies in the deck, so that helps set up them a little bit better. Plus it means there's space for more Grade 1s, especially more rideable targets. There are 3 Samurai Spirit. Now, I suppose usually in Granblue you'd play about 3 to 4, something like that, because it gives you the potential to swap out Banshees or just other units so you can keep getting other units back and basically fixing your columns. Especially with the Grade 3 in front of Samurai Spirit, you can hit those cross rides as well quite nicely. The reason I'm playing 3 obviously is because it's counterblast cost, and you only really need 1 set up in the drop zone because you're not going to be using it as frequently as other cards. It's still very nice to have in there. Finally, 3 Dandy Guy Romario. It gives me the potential, if I want to later on, to tech in a few options like maybe the Grade 2 Nightmist, although with the counterblast cost that's a bad idea. Mainly the possibility to tech in this at a later date perhaps. Also Dandy Guy Romario is a decent ride, works behind Nightmist for a 21k attack. Yeah, it's generally a pretty decent unit. You want extra Grade 1s really, just for the just so you're not reliant on the break reds so much. It's just nice to have the units there. Finally, 4 break ride, Gustians, mainly because restanding Vanguards and Vanguards that can gain 10k in a crit are a thing. So null guards absolutely necessary. Take the pressure off yourself and keep the game going in your favour. You're going to be tanking and drawing so much that I imagine it's not so much a problem, but these things will definitely save you in the long run. Now, on to the Grade 0s. As I said, I play Chappie. I play 3 Chappie because, if you think about it, Chappie has the potential to be any other unit, and by taking away 1 Grade 3, 1 Grade 2 and 1 Grade 1, you're playing 13, 11, 7, which really is very... The chances of you getting like grade stuck are so minimal compared to the standard setup, which is 14, 11, 8, I think. I could be wrong. I'll put an annotation on screen if I'm wrong. Yeah, Chappie has the potential to be any unit. You can send a Banshee there and revive it later. You can send a Nightsnow down, which is why I'm only playing 2 copies of Nightsnow, because if I don't draw it, I can be dependent on it using the Chappies and get it back that way. So Chappie's just a great unit, and you can send anything you might need later on. And if you do tech in 1 or 2 copies of a card, such as the Deadly Spirit or Skeleton Swordsman, it's great for that. Triggers. 4 crits. 4 more crits. And finally the best crit in the deck, Rough Banshee. So total of 12 crits. You won't want to play draws in Granblue because you basically have your own draw engine, so you can trigger your own draw triggers whenever you want to, which is absolutely great in the deck. Obviously Rough Banshee can be a draw if you need it to be, and it sets up the soul somewhat. You don't want to spam the effects, unless you feel like you can use the soul. The idea is with the deck, you want to plan your turns a few turns ahead, and think what resources do I need to make this move, or this one. And having 12 crit means that you can finish the game earlier. Playing Granblue, one of the problems I've found with playing draws is every time I get a draw, I'd always prefer it to be a crit, because you really want that pressure. I'm not saying this deck can't keep up with other decks, because it definitely can, especially using the right hands. But yeah, 12 crit, with the extra power you're getting to all of your rear guards, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be nice. And I'm just going to neatly scoop these over here. Lastly, 4 heals. Rick the Ghosty, mainly because I think it's adorable. But the heal is great because, obviously if you get anything in your damage zone that you'd want in the drop zone, you can heal it and then it goes to your second hand effectively. So heal's probably better than in most clans, obviously, and in most decks anyway you'd play 4 heals just to take pressure off yourself, and for the potential to get a Saki double heal, though that doesn't happen to me very often, thankfully. That'd be a bit Saki. Grade 0, I'm playing Peter the Ghosty, mainly because I want a decent 5k booster, it breaks even, it sets up the drop zone a little bit, and yeah, if I don't need to use the skill for whatever reason I can just swap it out. So it's mainly there for the 5k boost and the break even. The Counterblast cost is a bit of a pain, so that's why I've considered using Guiding Zombie instead. Though Guiding Zombie is a -1, though you won't really feel it too much, especially if you get the right cards off of this skill when you mill free. Because it's no Counterblast, you put it in your soul, mill free, and potential to set up there, which isn't bad, because Counterblast is quite valuable now. Also, for consistency's sake, you could also try the Grade 3 Searcher, though I felt the 4k power behind the Vanguard to be very lackluster, and would much prefer something like these two. But Peter the Ghosty is one I've chosen to go with for now. Okay. So that was the Nightsnow Nightmist deck profile. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, any sort of build you want to play. If you want to see a non-chappy version of this build, I can put that in the description or the comment section below as well. Don't forget to press that like button, of course, if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you do want to see more content from us, of course. We put out 3 videos a week. And I'll see you guys next time.